Let me start by saying good morning or good afternoon or good evening to all of you joining us from around the world. My name is Shweta Trivedi. I'm the Head of Talent Management and Analytics at the OECD, and I will be your moderator today. So the Young Associates Program is a unique career opportunity for recent bachelor's graduates, providing you with a valuable experience in multilateral policymaking, research, and analysis within the OECD. Over the next hour today, we will introduce you to the work of the OECD, its impact, and dive into the details of the Young Associates Program. I'm joined by a few members of my team today, and they will be sharing tips on how to draft a strong application and how to succeed in the selection process. Additionally, two current young associates will join us to discuss their experiences in the program, and we will then conclude with a Q&A session where you can ask any questions you may have, either to my team in terms of drafting your application or to the current young associates. Please feel free to send any of your questions in the chat throughout the webinar as we go. And I would like to now introduce you and hand you over to Nadav Shental, who is our Deputy Head of Talent Management and Analytics, and he will kick off by providing an overview of the OECD, the policy areas, our work and impact. So Nadav, over to you.
Hi, Shweta. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. So in the next few minutes, we'll give you a brief overview over the OECD. So we'll start with a short introduction about what is the OECD as an organization. So if we move forward, we'll be able to see that the OECD is an international organization, like others that you may know, like the UN, the European Commission, IMF. But the OECD is unique because it works mostly with government. The OECD is an intergovernmental organization that is working to make better policies for better lives. And when it comes to our global reach, you'll be able to see that currently the OECD had 38 member countries. And you can see some of those member countries on the map on the right side in blue. We also work very closely with multiple other countries and have currently 5 key partner countries. OECD economies represent about 50% of the world trade and investment. But in order for best practices, recommendation, and standards to have an impact, we work with multiple other countries and through different regional initiatives. Moving forward, you'll be able to see on this slide OECD member countries in blue. You'll be able to see the accession countries or accession candidates. Those are countries that aim to be a part of the OECD in the next few years. But also you'll be able to see our key partners, including big economies like India, China, and others. So let's talk about some of the work that the OECD is doing and mention some of the key facts around the organization. So the OECD was founded initially as part of the Marshall Plan to reconstruct Europe after the Second World War. In its current format, the OECD was reestablished in 1961. When it comes to the OECD budget, we are mostly funded by members' contributions. That means that every country pays to the OECD according to the size of its economy. When it comes to our locations, we're mostly based in Paris, which means that if you want to work at the OECD, that will be in Paris, France. But as you can see on the right side, we have different centers located in different countries around the world. We have 2 official languages, English and French, but I should already mention or reassure you that when you join the OECD, you're expected to have high proficiency in only 1 official language and are expected to learn the other language after you join. So hopefully that will provide some reassurance for those of you who might not speak one of those 2 official languages. Let's talk about the OECD's work in terms of our policies. So moving forward, you'll be able to see some of the key pillars of our work. So the OECD engaged with different stakeholders, including countries, as I said, but also parliaments, academia, and civil society. And we can divide our approach into 3 pillars. One is inform, first by collecting huge amounts of data and analyzing it, then convening through more than 300 committees and working groups across the different policy areas, and then by setting standards, recommendation, legal instruments, and other types of tools that allow countries to implement our recommendations and best practices in their local or national environments. You can see in the background, for example, one of our ministerial meetings that is held in Paris in our headquarters once every year. So moving forward, we would like to speak a bit about the policy areas of the OECD. So the list that you see in front of you is non-exhaustive. So there's many other types of policies and domains that we work in, but this is just to provide you with an understanding of the vast diversity of our policy work. And we can give you a few examples. So maybe start with education. Maybe some of you have heard of the PISA exams. Those are assessments that are conducted currently in more than 100 countries that allow us to assess the educational performance of 15-year-old students. And by that, we are able to provide countries and regions with recommendations as how to improve their educational systems. The next survey of PISA will be held in 2025. And I invite you to look at the results of previous PISA assessments on our website. Another example you'll be able to see relates to our work on digital, most importantly on AI. So we've developed in recent years the OECD AI principles that will actually allow countries, governments to oversee or regulate some of the work done around AI and more. And maybe a last example of the work that we're doing at the OECD will be around energy. So one of the affiliated bodies of the OECD is the International Energy Agency, or the IEA, that works to shape more secure and sustainable energy policies, which is, of course, receiving more and more attention given the different environmental impacts of the use of energy and others. So those are 3 examples of the work of the OECD, as well as some background that we hope will allow you to better understand our work and our approach. So I'll conclude now and hand over back to Shweta. Shweta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nadav, for sharing with us the information about the OECD. I would now like to pass the floor to Martin Wassermann, who is a talent management analyst in the HR team, to tell you more about the Young Associates program itself, the application process, and the recruitment process. Martin, over to you.
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I would like to tell you a bit more about the Young Associates program, which is really OECD's flagship career opportunity targeted at recent undergraduates who wish to gain significant first professional experience in the world of multilateral policymaking, research, and analysis. It's one of a few such programs that are offered by international organizations. And at the OECD, we invite individuals directly from after they complete their bachelor studies with no professional experience to really build their professional foundation at the OECD through their work, but also through being mentored by the managers. And we aim to give them a boost in their chances to be admitted to competitive graduate programs, study programs after the Young Associates program. A specific element of this program is that the Young Associates are expected to leave the organization after the 2 years and enroll in graduate studies. And we have former Young Associates who were successful and were admitted to top-level universities around the world. This is our really great interest to identify and develop talented individuals at the start of their career and provide boost to their future career path. The OECD is really attractive program for recent undergraduates and offers also quite interesting salary and benefits package, including tax-exempted salary. We also cover the relocation and travel to Paris, and Young Associates have 30 days of annual leave, medical insurance, and sick leave. So this is not an internship, but this is a regular job opportunity. So if you're interested in the program, it's important to mention the main requirements. To be eligible for the program, you need to obtain a bachelor's degree between January 2024 and September 2025. So in case you graduated and obtained your diploma or degree before January this year, or you will only finish after September next year, you would unfortunately not be eligible. You would also not be eligible if you're already enrolled or you already have a master's degree. It is important that we note that other requirements include nationality of an OECD member country. So if you're not a member, if you're not a national of a member country, you would unfortunately not be eligible, and you need to be fluent in English or French and have a GPA minimum 3.0 out of 4. I would invite you to visit our website and check your eligibility. We will post now in the chat eligibility testers, so you can answer a few questions and you'll be able to see whether you would be eligible. In the 2025-27 round of the Young Associates program, we will recruit 13 new Young Associates across different areas, as you can see on the slide, and this will include regional and international development, energy, environment, health systems, or skills policies. It might be worth mentioning that you can apply to more than one of the positions if you're interested, but also if you meet the requirements outlined in the vacancy. So I would really encourage you to review the vacancies and read what are the requirements for each of the roles. If you're interested, make sure that you submit your application by midnight Paris time on 1st December, because we will not be able to accept any applications after the deadline. So I would really encourage you to not leave it until the last moment, but maybe do it during the week before the deadline. So in case there is an issue, you have time to reach out to us and we will be able to answer. Now, regarding the process and timeline of the selection process, now we are in November, and as I mentioned, the vacancies are open for applications, and you will have until 1st of December to apply. Then, after the deadline, we will review all the applications and check the eligibility of candidates. And because the hiring process or recruitment process is very rigorous, it includes a number of different steps and assessments. But we want to help you succeed in those different steps and provide more information. So that's why we are also here today. And first assessment that will be done and that you might need to participate in is the online assessment. So all the eligible candidates will be invited to an online assessment that will take place in December. Following that, we will review all the results, and those that are suitable for the program based on the online assessment, we will review their applications, and those applications that best meet the needs of the program and also meet the requirements of the different positions, those candidates will be invited to a self-recorded video interview in February. This will be followed by a written test and a final video interview with the hiring team between February and March, and we aim to make the selection decisions and announce the results by the end of March, and then the selected candidates would receive their offer letters in April, so they can join the OECD in Paris in September 2025. I would like to now start by telling a bit more about how to submit an application. So you will need to submit your application through our careers portal. We don't accept any applications by email. And in your application, you will need to include your information on your education background and experience. I would note here that it is not required to have prior professional experience to apply, but if you have some, you can indicate that in the experience section. And lastly, it's also quite important that you include your cover letter, and that is supposed to be done in the section called Message to Hiring Manager. So please use that section to include your cover letter. Now a bit more about how to prepare your resume and cover letter. From the studies, we see that around 40% of candidates read job descriptions in under 45 seconds. And this might explain why many candidates don't actually meet the requirements for the job, or are not even eligible for the Young Associates program. So in this respect, I would really strongly encourage you to read the job description first and really carefully and make sure that you have the required skills, but also that you meet the eligibility requirements. Then, when you're preparing, it's also important that you read the vacancy, highlight the most important skills and duties in the vacancy, and then before you start writing it, it's also good to start thinking about what is your motivation, what are your skills, experiences, what have you achieved in the past, and how that would align with the role you're applying to. And also think about your possible contribution, how you could contribute as a young associate, given your background, given your experience, and also your studies that you have completed. So my main tips for writing an application is to first and foremost, always tailor your application to the position. It is really crucial that you tailor your application to the position. Even if you apply for multiple positions, make sure that you change the application and cover letter and resume to really align with the specific role that you're applying to. In your application, use the keywords that you previously highlighted. For example, the skills or the tools that are mentioned in the job description, and build your application around those keywords. And when doing so, use and provide concrete examples of experiences or achievements that you've had in your past, and include sufficient details and context in your application. It is really important that you clearly link your skills, experiences, and achievements to the requirements of the role. And it might be helpful to quantify the achievements. You know, you can use numbers, percentages. You can also mention some of the statistical tools, or you can mention specific names of research or papers that you did. So that there's a really clear link between what you've done and what it is required in the role. So I would really encourage you to include information on your previous experiences, achievements, research that you conducted, different papers, theses that you did during your studies and that are relevant for the work area. It might be specifically on that topic, but maybe if you used different methodology that can be helpful, but it was not necessarily in that specific area, you can also mention that as some kind of transferable skills. It might be also quite helpful to mention different coursework that you completed and are relevant or required for the role. And last but not least, make sure that you also include in your application information about what's your motivation to pursue a master's degree. If you know already what you would like to do later in your career after finishing the program, and if not, it might be worth mentioning or explaining why do you think or how do you think the program would help you navigating your future career. So I think that is a crucial element of a successful, a really good application as well. And in your application, avoid general statements, as I mentioned before, really provide concrete examples. And last tip from me is to use the cover letter as an opportunity to complement your resume. So do not repeat the same information as you have in the resume, but use that space to provide some additional information, some additional context that you were not able to fit in the resume, which is rather short. For the cover letter, I would suggest that you fit it into maximum one A4 page. So rather than writing really long cover letter. Moving on to the first assessment that you might be invited to is the online assessment, as I mentioned before. Which is an online computer-based online assessment or online aptitude test, which helps us distinguish candidates' reasoning abilities as well as their personality traits and motivation drivers. So you can see the three areas that you'll be asked, you'll need to complete, and you can see also some of the examples. So you'll need to select between the two statements and that are most appropriate or that you relate the most. Or you can, as you can see for motivation, again, two different statements that you would prefer. The last section is actually on reasoning abilities and ability to solve problems. So as you can see, this is not necessarily a personality or IQ test. There's no one personality type that we are looking for. Instead, the assessment really highlights candidates demonstrating relevant competencies for the young associate roles. And for that reason, it's not really possible to study or prepare for the test, but it might be good to think about, what motivates you, what are the drivers, and try to think about, what are the roles of the young associates. Moving on. Another assessment that you might be invited to is the self-recorded video interview. This interview is done on an online platform, so you will be able to do it anytime, wherever you are. You will just need to record your answers. And in this interview, we focus on your motivation for the program, for the specific role. We also assess your core competencies and your fit for the program. We use competency-based, scenario-based questions and also hypothetical situation questions. So the interview, we include around or up to 5 questions, and many of you are probably familiar with the self-recorded video. You will have 1 to 2 minutes to read the question and then up to 2 minutes to answer it and record your answer. So the total duration is around 30 minutes. You might wonder how to prepare for a self-recorded video interview. So first step, what I would advise you to really research the organization and team's work, read the different publications and reports that the team you're applying to prepared so that you're familiar with their work, but also with the terminology. Again, review the job description and what are the core competencies. Before starting the interview, again, reflect on your background, your motivation, skills, and experiences, and how you could contribute in that role. As I mentioned before, we use two types of questions. So I would suggest that you prepare specifically for the scenario-based questions, that you think about some examples of situations when you had to demonstrate some skills or when you had to navigate difficult situations or when you worked in a team, for example, so that you have those examples ready and you're able to use those during the interview. And to structure your interview or structure your questions, structure your answers, you might want to use some of the interview techniques like STAR or CAR. And in case you're not familiar with the self-recorded video interviews, you might want to practice answering some of the questions and time yourself so that you are not surprised or stressed that you're running out of time, because 2 minutes might sound like a long time or short time, depending on your situation, but so that you're not surprised by the time limit. And we included 2 sample questions here so that you can have a better understanding of what kind of questions you might be asked during the self-recorded video interview. The next assessment will be a written test with the hiring team, which is conducted to test your technical skills and knowledge in specific policy areas, and as well as your drafting skills and language skills. Typically, the tests include 2 to 3 questions, and you might have 1 to 2 hours to complete them. And because this is done, this is conducted remotely, you will receive the questions by email, and you will have 2 hours, 1 hour to send the answers back. The tests are usually open book, but you might be asked to include references in case you use any external sources. And I would like to point out here that the tests are evaluated anonymously to avoid any possible bias. So again, you might wonder how to prepare. So I would also again recommend you to research the work, research the team, professional terminology, read the publications of the OECD, but you might also review some additional materials or publications of other leading institutions that are related to the team's work. There is another tip to anticipate and think about what kind of questions you might be asked, because the written test questions are always related to the role that you're applying to. So you might read the job description and see what are the key responsibilities. And based on that, you might, to some extent, also anticipate the types of questions or content or work that you would be doing that we could ask about. It might be also helpful to practice, create some mock test based on the job requirements, and try to answer that, try to complete the test on your own, to also see whether you're stressed by the time limit, because sometimes when you have one or two questions and you only have an hour to complete, it's good to structure your time and your answer so you have time to answer the test completely. And last advice from me would be to really read instructions carefully and questions before you start, to make sure that you cover the entire question in your answer. So don't be too quick in starting answering the test before you carefully read the instruction and all the complete questions. And again, we included 2 sample questions so you can have a better understanding of what we ask. One is really related to the policy area, in this case, public health. And the second one is more about preparing different content and drafting, for example, talking points that is quite often the case at the OECD. And the last assessment that you would be invited to, if you make it all the way to this stage, would be interview with the hiring team. So this is an interview that the panel that you will meet, which is composed of the hiring manager, some other colleagues from different teams, and an HR representative, and it's conducted online. They will ask about your motivation, your core competencies, and your technical skills and knowledge. So this is, again, always related to the job description and core competencies that are required. In this stage, you will also have an opportunity to ask the panel any questions that you might have about the role or about the team. So it might be good to prepare 1 or 2 questions ahead of the interview. Again, you might wonder how to prepare for a panel interview with the hiring team. Everything that I mentioned before for the self-recorded video interview would apply again. So really make sure that you understand the core competencies, and especially for the Young Associates program, it's the level 1 of core competencies. And make sure you keep your answers structured, logical, concise, and to the point, rather than talking around, about some unnecessary information that don't necessarily bring any value to your answers. And for that, as I mentioned before, it might be particularly helpful to use some of the interview techniques. And it's also good during the interview, or maybe when you have an opportunity to ask questions, to be able to demonstrate that you understand the work, the requirements, that you know that you have the technical skills and the technical knowledge for the role, and how you could contribute. Again, I would suggest that you practice answering different questions. And there's also a practical interview guide for candidates. We will post now link in the chat, so you will be able to get some additional information and tips if you read the guide. And again, we include some of the sample questions, but since the webinar will be recorded, you'll be also able to access them afterwards. So this is it from me. Thank you, and I hand over back to Shweta.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you for sharing your insights about the program and guiding us through the recruitment process. I see lots of questions have come in, more questions around tips, and we'll come to those shortly. I'm sure the information you've shared is going to be incredibly helpful for many of the participants today. What we'll do next is we have the pleasure of hearing from 2 current young associates who will share their own experiences. I'm sorry, my video does not want to turn on. I think it is now turned on. Yep. Okay, great. So we'll now have the pleasure of hearing from 2 current young associates who will share their own experiences. Let me introduce to you Marine Matsumura, who joined the Center on Wellbeing, Inclusion, Sustainability and Equal Opportunity in 2023. and Villas Vidvei, who began working in the Environment Directorate in September this year. And following that, we will have a Q&A session where we will answer the questions that you have put in the chat. So let's begin first with some questions for Marine and Villas. So perhaps I can just put forward the questions to you. The first question being, can you tell us about some of the key responsibilities you handle as a young associate in your respective roles?
Yes, I can begin. So I work with in the Environment Directorate with research and data analysis in the Environmental Performance and Information Division. Division is monitoring and quantifying different aspects of environmental policy and environmental metrics, and it supports countries' progress towards net zero with tracking, performance reviews, and feedback. As I have a data role, my contribution will very often be in that sphere, although I do feel like the work is very diverse and very team-based, if that makes sense. I still feel new as I only started 2 months ago, but some of my key responsibilities so far has been to draft a working paper on vulnerability to environmental hazards together with more senior colleagues, presentations on the progress of our work streams. And this week I am working on a draft chapter on an online publication on green transition indicators, which are sort of KPIs on different countries' progress with the green shift.
Hi, everyone. And in my case, I work in the Wellbeing Directorate, so we work on well-being data and policy across OECD countries. And in my case, I work across 2 units, so I actually rotate every 4 to 5 months, and I have the chance also to work on a variety of projects. So for example, for the child wellbeing unit this year, I was able to support and conduct research on which policies and data collection practices can be conducted at the OECD and local levels to build child-friendly neighborhoods. And over the last few months, I was part of the organizing team of the 7th OECD World Forum on Wellbeing in Rome. And so for that, I assisted my manager with speaker outreach, content management, and kind of organizational aspects on site as well.
Great, thank you both. And maybe if I could ask you, initially, what attracted you to apply for this particular program, and how has it shaped your career path and your aspirations?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I think with the program's headline of providing substantial professional experience before beginning graduate studies, it stood out to me as a great opportunity that would be a perfect next step in my career. And having a generalist background in philosophy, politics, and economics, I really wanted to gain more specialist experience, and for me, I wanted to develop my programming skills in a real-world context. So the OECD was a great environment for this, as you really find yourself at the intersection of research and application and public policy, as Nadav described previously. I also had many friends from my exchange at Sciences Po who spoke warmly about their internships here, and I had used OECD outputs in my studies, so I felt like I had an idea of what I was applying for. And lastly, the fact that the Young Associates program will really enhance your chances to be admitted to some of the master's programs that I am most interested in, which are typically oriented towards candidates with more professional experience. That is, of course, also a big part of the attraction.
Yeah, I have a very similar experience and have similar motives for applying to the OECD originally. So this program is a very good opportunity to have kind of a foot in multilateralism and evidence-based policy research. But in addition to being a really strong asset in your CV, the OECD is also a great environment if, as a young person, you're very curious as well, because you have colleagues working, in my case, on subjective well-being. Then you go up 2 floors and you have people working on tax policy. And so you get these conversations that you wouldn't really have a chance of having outside of the OECD. And so the range of expertise is truly fascinating. And then it can help you as well at this stage in your life to sharpen your interests and then maybe think about what would be a passion of yours in your graduate studies as well.
Great, thank you both. A nice segue, actually, Marine, to the next question, which really is, I think is going to be very important for people to hear about this. Given the number of applications we get, and the both of you having been successful, how did you approach the preparation and application for the selection process? And is there any advice that you would like to give to potential candidates?
Yes, it's a bit funny to sit here in this webinar, which I followed with care only 1 year ago. I think I approached each step in different ways and separately. And I remember I tried to have a mindset where I saw it all as an opportunity to learn and to get experience from a rigorous recruitment process, regardless of whether I would get the job or not in the end. And I think what is a bit unique with this program is that it is so public and so explicit what they look for in the initial recruitment steps. I remember I watched this webinar several times to make sure that I picked up on details. And I think you really have the opportunity to prepare well and enhance your chances if you put down some effort. And for the letter to the hiring manager and for my CV, I tried to, as Martin mentioned, I tried to really tailor them to the position I was applying for. I tried to make it clear that I really found the position and program aligning with my ambitions for concrete and specific master's programs. And I tried to implement the advice I got through this webinar from last year. For example, one of the young associates who participated the last time had the very useful tips of leveraging ChatGPT to create dummy questions for the pre-recorded interview so that I could test myself both improvising using the STAR method or by writing out sample answers. And in my case, I also applied for another job as well as a master's degree at Sciences Po. So I had backup plans, which were also here in Paris. And even though these parallel application processes were a bit stressful alongside my bachelor thesis and finishing up my bachelor's, the effort feels really worth it now that I'm sitting here.
So I think Martin's advice was very helpful as well, and everything that Villas said. I would say, number one, be intentional about your applications and really look into the work of the directorate that you're applying to and see how it aligns with your interests. And number two, try to be forward-looking. If you repeat what you were saying in your CV and your cover letter, I think you're missing an opportunity to truly showcase your individuality and how the program fits into your future plans as well. It's not an endpoint, it's really a stepping stone to then, as Villas said, pursue graduate program or a master's that you're really interested in. So if you can showcase that and show to your future managers that this really fits into a long-term plan, I think that could be valuable. And then, if it can help you have some perspective on this, I think it's really important to keep in mind that as great as the Young Associate program is, it's not your only shot at getting into the OECD in a lifetime. And if it can help, as Young Associates, we work with a lot of interns or temporary staff who then move on to have brilliant careers in the OECD. So if you can keep in mind that this is not your only chances at having a good job here or in an international organization, I think that can be helpful because it can be quite stressful as well as a process.
Great, thank you. Very, very good tips there. And then after you first joined, some insight that you might want to share in terms of your experience. Were there any surprises or things that you did not expect?
Even though I still feel very new, I really feel integrated in my team, both socially and professionally. I think it was mentioned by everyone I talked to about the program before I joined, but I'm still positively surprised with the responsibilities I am entrusted with. I really feel integrated like an equal with tasks more in the direction of people with a PhD than in the direction of an internship. My manager is also challenging me in a very stimulating way where I learn new skills without being too overwhelmed. As mentioned, I did my undergrad in philosophy, politics, and economics. And since I started here, I worked a lot with GIS, for example, and geographic information science. For me, that is a skill I have wanted to develop for some time. And I think it's very appealing that the job from the beginning has a steep learning curve, and that there are openings to learn these new skill sets that doesn't necessarily align with too much with our background. Yeah.
Relate a lot, Nicholas, in terms of the responsibilities you're entrusted with as a young professional. You might not expect that from the get-go, but it is actually, you hit the ground running. And I think it's really kind of as well, one of the unique aspects of this program is the relationship you get to develop with your mentor and managers. And you'll get a lot of surprises, both on the substance of the research that you're doing. I think reading OECD reports is one thing, and then actually working on them is another. And then in terms of the work itself, I would say even I was surprised by the periphery of it. So even getting to meet colleagues that work on these different subjects and getting to meet people beyond your own team is something that I didn't expect. That there's a really good culture here, that people being very friendly and open to having a coffee chat once in a while. So you get to learn about all the research areas that are being conducted here, and that's really fascinating.
Thank you. And finally, why would you recommend the program to others?
I mean, it's difficult to pinpoint something new after all the good reasons that have already been presented in this webinar. But I would recommend the program to anyone with an interest in the work of the OECD and an ambition to pursue a master's degree in a top-tier university. At least if you find a position that really aligns with your profile. And personally, I remember being a bit nervous about committing to a job I did not know too much about in a very high-performing environment. But I always try to think about the best thing that can happen rather than the worst thing that can happen when I make choices. And I'm very happy with this job, and I think I can speak for my entire cohort who came now in September when I say that everyone are happy with their role after about 2 months on the job.
For me, I think any professional experience in between your undergrad and your graduate studies is good, just to discover your interests and getting to know yourself. But in terms of the Young Associates program, it really has a unique design that is particularly fitting for your stage in life, and being a young professional, potentially moving to a new country and moving to a foreign country, you'll get this community around you. The onboarding process is really thoughtful and designed in a way that really helps you kind of navigate the new aspects of your life here in Paris and in a new professional environment. So, and you'll be also surrounded by fellow young associates who will be there to navigate this adventure together with you, and then you have an alumni network as well. So I think the design of the program is particularly fruitful for young professionals.
Great. Thank you very much, Marine and Villas, for your responses. Your perspectives are certainly invaluable to helping understand what the program offers. We actually have received many questions from the audience, and we won't be in a position to address all of them, but let's start with some of them. I will read out some questions, and Marine and Villas, some of them are aimed at you, so I'll ask you both as well. And then Nadav and Martin, some of those questions are for you. So let me start by asking, and I see there's a lot of questions around CVs and cover letters, and I think some of these have already been answered. There are some quicker ones and some longer ones. So around eligibility, so Martin, I think this one is for you. Am I still eligible if I've previously done an OECD internship? Still a bachelor's degree, but have done an OECD internship?
Yes, so these two programs are completely different. So if we have former interns who were selected as young associates, so they're not exclusive. If you're an intern, you can also apply for the Young Associates program.
Great, thank you. And then there's quite a few questions around eligibility. So is the program exclusively for people from member countries, or can others apply? What if you're a key partner country, or what if you're an ascension country? So if you can tell us a little bit about that, Martin.
Yes, so as I mentioned during the presentation, the program is open to nationals of OECD member countries only. So if you're a national of a key partner country or an accession candidate country, unfortunately, this you would not be eligible unless, in case of accession candidates countries, the country of your nationality would join by the time you apply. So which is highly unlikely. So it is only for current nationals of current member countries.
Thank you. And Nadav, perhaps you can take this one. There's a few questions here around, are individuals encouraged to apply for positions in more than one directorate, or is it better to focus attention on one?
Thank you for that question. So basically, you can apply to all 13 vacancies. The thing is that, as Martin mentioned, we really encourage you to tailor your application to each one of those 13 vacancies that are open in the context of the Young Associates program. That means that you'll have to demonstrate within your application that you're a relevant and suitable candidate. So bear that in mind while you draft your application. But again, you're not refrained from applying to more than 3, 4, and 5 vacancies. Just make sure that you actually tailor your application and you show your added value vis-a-vis other candidates.
Thank you, Nadav. And then there's a couple of questions, Nadav, perhaps you can take these around language requirements. So if you happen to be proficient in both English and French, do you recommend that we submit applications and materials in both languages or just the one? And also, if in terms of exams to show level of French or English, do we take exams and showcase those, such as TOEFL or another equivalent?
That's a great question. So when it comes to your language fluency, it's basically a self-assessment or self-declaration. You do not have to submit any kind of exam or certification showing your language skills. And we can tell you that we'll be able to evaluate your language skills throughout the selection process. So in that respect, no need to submit anything in addition to the documents that Martin has mentioned. When it comes to deciding if you want to apply in English or French, both is okay. It's really up to you. You can apply for one position in English and the other one in French, but otherwise, it's really up to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadav. Martin, perhaps this one for you. Will the questions for the self-recorded part of the interview be sent in advance of the recording, or is it done live at the time of the recording? And then whilst you're answering that, also in relation to that, do we use AI to assess applications?
A really good question. So you will not be able to see the questions before the interview, because that would be, not the purpose of the interview to give you time or a lot of time to prepare your answers. So you will be able to only see the question for a minute or two, and then immediately after you'll be asked to record your answer. So it's rather immediate. And regarding the AI, we don't use any kind of AI system to screen applications or anything like that. All the applications that we will review and read is done by us, by humans in our team.
Right, and then related to that, Martin, going back to the question that was asked about multiple applications, if a candidate does apply for more than one position, how many video interviews are required, how many written tests, and how many assessment interviews?
So candidates who are considered for more than one position will only complete one online assessment and one self-recorded video interview. If they make it to the subsequent steps of written test or panel interview with the hiring teams, they might be asked to do more than one, because those the test and the panel interview are specific to the specific role. So they might be asked to do multiple of them then.
Thank you. And perhaps now a question for Marine and Villas. Is there a cohort or a network between the young associates? How do you all get together and connect. What is the process for that? Maybe Marine, if you want to take that one. And then Vilas, another question is, what are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered so far? I realize it's only a couple of months, but maybe between the two of you, if you can answer those two questions around there being a network or a cohort of young associates, and then key challenges you've encountered so far.
Of course. So actually, Martin helps a lot with connecting us at the very beginning of the program. So right before onboarding, we get to connect with our fellow young associates, usually 10 to 13 people. And we have a WhatsApp group. It's very specific, but that's true. And we have a WhatsApp group, and we get together, and we then meet on a regular basis. So we're having a Thanksgiving dinner, for example, this year. And then, depending on the cohort, there's different kind of patterns, but usually we get along very well. We're very like-minded people, and we help each other navigate this new experience together. And in terms of the challenge, I mean, there's challenges every day. You come into the workplace and you face the challenges, but that's also the asset of this program. I mean, the benefit is that you get challenged every single day, and you grow from it and you learn from it.
Yes, I agree with what Marin said, and there's a community between the young associates of both cohorts. So we are the one from my cohort is oftentimes seeing the ones from the previous cohort, and I would say it's a very good community. We did a weekend in Brussels together, and we discussed our different experiences. And for the challenges, you're right, I haven't been here for too long. It's always a challenge to adapt and find your place in a new environment. But in general, I feel like I've had a very warm and inclusive welcome. So the challenges are maybe more the ones I've been putting on myself. Wanting to perform and keep up with the speed of my team. So, yeah, it's stimulating.
Okay, thank you. And a super important question. I think we'll aim this also at you, Marine Villas. What's your experience like living in Paris? So, logistical aspects. Does the OECD provide support? What was the relocation like? Do the young professionals tend to live together? So anything that you can say around moving and the transition to moving to Paris?
So I know that can be one of the challenges. In my case, so maybe the last would be a better place to have a distinct perspective on this. But finding an apartment, I think, would be the biggest challenge. But we are all housed. I don't know of any instances of young associates living together, but that could be a novelty next year.
I think in my cohort we have 2 young associates who are living together. I'm also European, so I think it could be more challenging if you're from a non-European country, and I also lived here later, so I had some experience in navigating the different websites for finding an apartment and so on. But I would suggest just leveraging the fact that you're employed when you have a salary to refer to, and also you can reach out to the previous young associates for tips and experience, and I think it went fine for everyone in my cohort.
Thank you. And then specifically around the support that OECD provides, there's a question here whether does it mean accommodation is provided, or what kind of support is provided? Perhaps Vilas and Marine, you can start, and then Nadav and Martin, if you want to add and complement anything there, feel free to.
So I know that as young associates, we get a handbook. I believe that was also kind of put together by the previous cohorts. And then the OECD has this network of colleagues who also help you out with finding an apartment. They have this network of people who can help you. And I believe the OECD also has partnerships with kind of agencies to help you look for apartments and that are English speaking as well.
Yeah, and what happened once I got the job was that Martin linked us with the previous cohort. I think it was via email and WhatsApp, and then quite early this summer we did a call with Marine and her cohort, and we could ask all the questions we had. And you don't feel once you're accepted, you don't feel alone in my experience.
And maybe I would just add regarding relocation that in case you're from non-EU or non-Schengen country, the OECD would also support you with your visa application. So there will be no issue with visas, and you would have the visa for the OECD or for France as long as you work at the OECD for the 2 years. So you should not be worried about getting the visa arranged, because we support all the selected young associates in that.
Thank you. There are several questions here related to the CV and cover letter, and I know, Martin, you did go into some detail when you talked about the tips. But perhaps between you, Nadav and Martin, if you could cover a little bit more around the cover letter. So the questions here are, should we briefly mention our future plans, such as what we want to do in terms of graduate school, or would we focus primarily on experiences and accomplishments? And then, how specific should I be in my cover letter, related to my past experience and specific job description, or should I be mentioning specific reports? So there's quite a few questions on how to differentiate between the CV and the cover letter and how much detail to go into.
So maybe I can start, and Martin, feel free to complement. So I think that all the elements that you've mentioned, Shweta, will be important to mention in the cover letter. That includes specific experience, also any kind of reference to OECD reports or research that the team that you're applying to has conducted. I always say it's always good to do some name dropping. And by that, I mean the type of work and documents that the OECD has created. But also, it is important to mention where you want to see yourself after the program. So definitely, future plans are an integral part of what we look for. So you better mention that in your cover letter as well.
Maybe if I can just add, sometimes you might be already thinking about specific programs or specific universities, and that can, align also with the role or the young associate. So you can also mention specific programs that you're interested in your application. If you don't know, again, as I said before, you can use this opportunity to outline how and why the program would help you in figuring out your future career.
Great, thank you. We'll take one final question. I'm conscious of time, and this is for Marine and Villas. Maybe we can close with you sharing one of the most memorable or rewarding aspects of your experience to date at the OECD.
Yeah, I'll take professional experience. I feel like sometimes I've used the phrase swim or die to describe how my start was here, because I was really thrown into ongoing projects, which was amazing in my opinion. But only after 4 weeks here, I held a presentation for the deputy director of my directorate and colleagues from or external partners from the University of Tokyo. And so for me, that was a very rewarding experience to be able to do that so early in the program.
And in my case, I think it was very recent. We've been working on the OECD World Forum on Wellbeing in Rome, and getting to go there and meeting with experts and seeing the materialization of our work on well-being with so many international exchanges on actual substance and research projects. I think that was a very rewarding experience. Just to be able to have a seat in these rooms is just very rewarding.
Great, thank you both. So this brings us to the end of our formal Q&A section. It's been a pleasure connecting with so many of you today. Thank you all for joining us. I believe, Martin, you're going to share the screen. Yep, we can see here the formal recruitment process, and we're also sending you information in the chat where you can find the additional information on our website. You will also be able to find a recording of today's webinar online soon. That was one of the questions that was also asked. So yes, there will be a recording. And as a reminder, for those of you who are planning on applying, please do remember that the deadline is midnight Paris time on the 1st of December. So don't leave it to the last minute. Please plan ahead. You can submit the application on our careers website, but in case of technical difficulties in thesis, please make sure you do start this early on. We look forward to receiving your application and hopefully welcoming some of you as the next cohort of the Young Associates in Paris in September 2025. And with that, we wish you the rest of your morning, evening, or afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today.